Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel, or if it's your first time here, welcome especially. I'm Sally, and I'm so glad you stopped by. 2024 is upon us, and with that being the case, I think it is only appropriate to share some healthy, attainable, pro-metabolic goals for the new year. Or if you're not watching this the new year, really they can be implemented at any time. But I'm going to start off by sharing my goals going into 2024, and then I'm going to share 10 attainable habit goals that you can consider implementing, or rather I would encourage you to choose a few to consider implementing into your routine for the sake of your overall health. So my broad goal for the year is to focus on eating more seasonally. To be quite honest, this is something that I feel like I have struggled with. I have not been super motivated to do, even as I have pursued my health and pursued a more holistic lifestyle, but it's just so easy. With the system we have, with the grocery stores we have, to go in and get whatever you want whenever you want it. But foods that are out of season have a greater environmental impact. They lack nutrition, and it's also really beautiful when you consider how foods that are in season tend to pack with them nutrients that your body may need most in that season. And so this is just a goal for me as a whole, but there are two things in particular that I am going to be doing to help with this, in addition to just being more mindful of it while I'm at the grocery store. So first is that I want to start a garden. It is looking like Samuel and I are going to have a space of our own, a house of our own this upcoming year, which is a dream come true and something I would love to share more about if you guys are interested in that. It's something that I am largely excited about for the sake of having more of a homestead. It's not going to be a place where we have animals at this point in time, but I'm excited to do as much as I can with the space that I have, whether it's in my kitchen, in my garden, to make food from scratch and to live off the land a little bit more. And so my goal with my garden is to choose a few plants, a few crops that I really want to include in my diet, that I really enjoy, or I'm interested in including in my diet from a nutritional perspective, and growing them in relatively large quantities. I mean, it's going to be a backyard garden, so bear that in mind. And I also want to make sure that this is doable for me. But I want to grow enough of these crops that, assuming everything goes okay, I can enjoy them in season. And then I can also preserve them so that I have in-season foods from when they were in season to enjoy throughout the year. And I will say, I think that eating foods that are preserved at peak ripeness in season throughout the year counts. That is a part of eating in season, and something that we've just lost a lot of the art of doing that, of preserving our own food. And it doesn't need to be hard. I mean, it can be as simple as throwing things into the freezer when they're ripe. So going to be doing some of that, but then the other part of my goal is to learn to do some canning on my own. This is something I've done with my dad. It shouldn't be too hard, but I would love to make some canned beet pickles, for instance, and just things kind of in that vein. Sorry, I was looking, I thought I saw somebody over there, but I didn't. Okay, so those are my goals for 2024 when it comes to my health, just kind of where I'm at. That's really what I want to prioritize right now. But here are 10, again, of those little habit goals that should be pretty easy to implement and have rather drastic, in comparison, effects on your overall health. So number one is going to be morning sunlight first thing each day. Even if it's not a sunny day, even if it is a gloomy, gray, cloudy, overcast day, go outside first thing, soak up that light. It's still coming through in some capacity. You don't have to stare right at it. You don't have to stare right at the sun, but that morning sunlight does a ton for your circadian rhythm. It's just tremendously valuable and great for your hormone health. And a super easy thing to do is just to go outside when you wake up, whether it's a walk, whether you're just sitting on your porch reading a book, whether you are eating your breakfast outside, or all of the above, to go get some morning sunlight. Number two is going to be no naked carbs. This means anytime you're eating, pair some protein with it. Put some protein on top, so to say, or have it beside. If you want to have a treat, I would say that's okay, but have some easy protein snacks available. It sounds a little silly. Someone asked me once when I recommended adding some protein to their evening ice cream, they said, what would you add? And I said, just add a beef stick. Like, don't put it on your ice cream, but just eat your beef stick and then eat your ice cream. And then you're good. That's okay. But it does a lot to add protein on top of your carbs, adding in some fat as well, of course, but make sure you're pairing protein with those carbohydrates so that you can balance your blood sugar, protect your hormones, keep your cortisol levels stable, and that just does so much good. Number 3 is 30 grams of protein before coffee. I always talk about eating breakfast before coffee. That is super important when it comes to preventing that cortisol spike and regulating your hormones. But protein specifically really helps with this. So highly recommend that everybody tries to have 30 grams of protein each morning before breakfast, at least, depending on some individual factors. It may be best for you to actually eat more protein than that. And in your one meal, I have another video on protein specifically, how I get 150 grams in a day is the name of the video. I'll make sure it's linked below. But where I talk about essentially how to figure out how much you need. But all that goes to say 30 grams protein before your coffee will go a long way. Next one is going to be to remineralize your water. Now, when we filter our water, which we should be doing, it loses a lot of its minerals. We can add those back in, and that can do a lot for our health. So simple things that we can do are just add a little pinch of mineral salt. Like if you have pink Himalayan or gray Celtic salt, you can add that to your water. Just a little bit. You can add trace mineral drops. You can do mineral rocks or mineral stones in the bottom of your filter. I've heard of people doing these things, but just choose a way to add more minerals to your water. And of course, that has great systemic effects. If you don't, want to put a pinch of salt in your water, you can also just be really mindful to add an extra dose of minerals to each meal. That's another good way to think about it. Okay, next tip is weekly foam rolling. Foam rolling is great not only for muscular recovery, but also for lymphatic drainage. That has implications on your immune health and on your nervous system, on so many different things. But if you just schedule a time to foam roll every week, I personally think this is much easier and more enjoyable to do than dry brushing for lymphatic drainage. But you can also do something like dry brushing, which ideally you'd probably want to do more than once a week. I'm not an expert on the ins and outs of dry brushing, so if you know more about it, you can comment that down below. But yeah, just make this a part of your routine. It will boost your recovery, help your immune system, help your lymphatic drainage, and all of that good stuff. Next one is going to be Epsom salt baths. I would say also try and do this once a week. And again, please don't choose all of these tips and say, I'm going to implement these all at one time. That's not feasible, and that's not the point. It's just beginning to implement few healthy habits into your routine so that they're just that part of your routine, and you'll see that they have great impacts on your health over time. But Epsom salt baths are a great way to also remineralize, get some magnesium in. It does come through your skin. And also taking a hot bath is really good for detoxification. There are lots of benefits to those. So you can consider including those for a little extra magnesium for liver support, for detoxification support once a week or at whatever frequency feels attainable for you. Next one is going to be swapping to grass-fed beef. So when it comes to your diet, I know it's really expensive to try and buy everything top tier, best quality possible at one time. I don't recommend that you do that because I think it's really hard to stick with that and to find a rhythm that works for you. Now, if you can afford it, that's great. And that's definitely something to work to. But I think in terms of building habits that last, it really works the best to choose one thing at a time. And I think beef has a huge return on investment because you really see a completely different fatty acid profile with grass-fed beef as opposed to conventionally fed beef. So just anytime you're looking to buy beef, swap it out for grass-fed. Walmart even now has some great 100% grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef and steak options. You can find it at most stores. I know Trader Joe's generally sells it. Just ask them which one it is because sometimes it's just their organic beef, but they're pretty transparent about what is what. Some Costco's have it in the freezer section in really affordable forms. So do some research, find a place that you can work with. And if you are up for spending a little bit more change at one time and you have this available to you, you can look into buying a share of a cow. This is something we're going to try to do in the upcoming year, is buy half a cow, or you can do a quarter if you really are going to eat a lot of beef. If you have a big family, you could do a whole cow, and then you get that whole cow's worth of meat to store in your freezer. So that's another option. Okay, next one is going to be resistance training 2 times a week. Maybe it's 1 time a week, but choose a number of times a week that is just under, and I know this sounds a little weird, but that is just under what you feel is attainable, is realistic for you most of the time. And start there. And this is something I talked a little bit about in my recent current workout split video. I think oftentimes people get a little too ambitious and they try to implement too much at one time, and then they can't keep up with it. And for that reason, they get discouraged and they are unable to really establish a routine. So I think 2 times a week is often a great starting place for people. Even if it's just 1 time a week, starting to do some resistance training is going to do a ton for your health. It improves outcomes with insulin resistance. It improves your overall muscle mass, of course, your bone density. It does a whole lot of good. So just consider implementing it in some way 1 or 2 times a week. Okay, if you're not already, maybe you're trying to increase it, just add another day. Second to last is going to be breath work before meals. This is something a lot of people do not realize, but you need to be in a calm state in order to really digest your food. If you are all fired up, if you're in a fight or flight state, your body is literally telling your body that digestion is not a priority. And so an easy thing that you can do to help your body literally digest and then use nutrients in food better is just sit down before a meal and do about 2 minutes of breath work. You can think about like breathing in through your nose for 4 counts, holding your breath at the top, exhaling for 4 counts, holding your breath at the bottom. There are different ways to do it. You can look up my optimizing digestion video as well for more tips on that, but just an easy goal to sit down at the table a little bit early before each meal and do some breath work so you can get into that parasympathetic state. Okay, number 10, last tip is to incorporate organ meats 1 or 2 times per month. If you can incorporate them more, great. My personal goal is to include them at least once every week, but I know that's not feasible for a lot of people. At least it seems scary because if you're not used to eating organ meats, it can be daunting. So just choose 1 day a month that you are going to grind up some beef liver or something like that into your spaghetti sauce, into your chili. I have a lot of great resources on how to sneak beef liver or chicken liver or whatever kind of liver, organ meats as a whole, into your meals. So you can definitely go check those out. I have some great recipes in my starter guide, which will be linked below, and on YouTube as well. Okay, I hope these help. 10 attainable pro-metabolic health goals for 2024. Please don't forget to like this video if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, bye y'all.